Alexander Isak has overtaken Marcus Rashford as the Premier League player in the best form. Bournemouth continues sucking without Marcus Tavernier. Harvey Barnes attacks a goal like it owes him money. Jose Sa is the most inconsistent keeper in the Premier League. And Arsenal spank Palace and are making this title chase look like a cakewalk. Football fans far and wide, welcome to the Football v Football podcast. This is the EPL Gameweek 28 reaction show. We got kind of a lesser slate of games today. There are a lot of teams playing in some other tournaments, a lot of games that got postponed. That Fulham Manchester United game was wild. Mitrovic, I don't know when we'll see you again. Say bye bye to my fantasy team. I have him in all my fantasy teams, so I guess say bye bye to that. He might be suspended the last 10 games. I guess we'll see about that. But we're gonna stick to the EPL games for now, the ones that counted towards the standings here. We're gonna go ahead and get started with Newcastle beating Nottingham Forest 2-1. This game started with Willock bottled an early chance here, but made good later on an assist that we'll talk about in a bit. But the big takeaway from this game for me was Emmanuel Dennis coming out of nowhere. I didn't even know this guy was not on Watford anymore. But he is a composed finisher. I've always been impressed with Emmanuel Dennis. He's a composed finisher, and he scored the first goal of this game. Very composed, even with the keeper right in his face and two other defenders there. Just a calm chip over a defender, I think Trippier, who was just running straight towards the goal, and he ran right into the net. And Nottingham Forest took an early lead in this game, and it was an amazing goal, and this is a tremendous signing by Forest in my estimation, and one that they needed. I don't think Brennan Johnson is enough for this team. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is a great piece for this team, but Emmanuel Dennis is the kind of clinical finisher that this team needs in order to stay up in the Premier League, so good on them. Later in this game, Sean Longstaff got unlucky, hit the crossbar with a shot, but as mentioned at the outset, Alexander Isak, who is in incredible form at the moment in the last 2 or 3 games, could have had a hat trick last game. Finished a goal in a very acrobatic way, moving his body, contorting his body in a athletic type of way to get the first goal in off of a cross and make this game 1-1. Another guy for Newcastle, Anderson, a fairly new entrant, I believe, to this team, had an immediate impact as well for Newcastle. Started off with a strong shot on target here. And then early in the second half, he had a header goal, which made the Newcastle side go crazy. Later rescinded by offside, but that guy had tremendous impact on this game. He is going to be a factor on this team. Much more so than Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon, what kind of signing was that? What have you done, Anthony Gordon? Nothing. Not much. Making me look bad. I thought Anthony Gordon was going to be a great signing for them, but he hasn't done much. There was an unlucky handball in the 91st minute against Nottingham Forest here, against one of their defenders. Yeah, just unlucky. And then the guy tried to grab his head, try to act like it was his head that touched the ball and not his hand. Sorry, bro. Bad acting. And then Isak took the penalty, buried the goal, his second goal of the game, and the game-winning goal. So he had his brace, and that game-winning goal, the away Newcastle fans went absolutely crazy, and the players went to celebrate with them, and it was something that was really fun to see. What a sight by these Newcastle fans. I know Forest has some great fans. They have an increasing promotional campaign to make Forest a lot more well known. I think they do have a good team, but overall, what a win here by Newcastle, who continue to ascend in the standings. If Liverpool keeps their form, if Tottenham continues to, as we'll talk about later, go kind of topsy turvy, Newcastle can really slip into that top four and play Champions League football next year. We shall see. We will move on now though to the next game. Aston Villa beating Bournemouth 3-0. Oh boy. Villa early in this game absolutely relentless with the pressure. Resulted in an early goal by Douglas Luiz in this one. And as you kind of watch this game on the Bournemouth side, Dominic Solanke, he takes a lot of shots on goal, but overall just lacks, class finishing. He is now showing that he is a player that is tailor made for the second division. I'm sorry to say it. He gets dispossessed way, way, way too often. This team is a team that started using Django Watara recently, and I think he is the best offensive player on this team with Tavernier out. But Solanke, he's just a big tease. He's a big tease. He just takes a bunch of shots on target, but never in a dangerous way, and he's never composed, and he just often dispossessed by defenders. I mean, Bournemouth is in the relegation zone now. They're in 19th place. They're firmly in the relegation zone. They need Tavernier bad. They need Dango Ouattara to take over and forget about Dominic Solanke. I mean, this guy just constantly disappoints me. Anyway, back to the Aston Villa side here. Buendia. I think he's a very underrated player, to be honest with you. I think he's a very athletic player on this Aston Villa side. You constantly see him making really burstful runs and just incredibly athletic player. So the more they get him involved, the better off they'll be. On the Bournemouth side again, Philip Billing off a set piece had a tremendous free kick, hit was going for right at the top corner, the top left corner, but was tipped away by Emi Martinez. Kudos to Emi Martinez there. And the second goal of this game for Aston Villa was scored by Ramsey. It was a pretty simple goal, kind of deflected off the goalie there. But kudos, Jacob Ramsey. The more shots you put on target, the more you give yourself a chance to score. Ollie Watkins in this game had so many chances, just couldn't quite finish, but the chances were absolute quality, and you see the difference in his quality versus Solanke. This is a game that really kind of outlined what a Premier League striker looks like versus what a second division striker looks like, and I think Solanke will probably be in the second division if Tavernier doesn't come and rescue them to end this year. And there's an absolutely stark difference. You can watch the two of them. Sorry, 1 second. All right, I'm sorry about that, and we're back. But yeah, just to finish out this game here, Tyrone Mings, missed an absolute sitter to end this game, saved by Neto. But shortly thereafter, Buendia, the guy that we mentioned before, buried one in the back of the net with a header to make this a 3-0 drubbing. It's looking good for Aston Villa. They're continuing to ascend up the rankings, and for Bournemouth, though, like I mentioned before, they are firmly in the relegation zone. They need Tavernier back badly. Solanke, he's just not the guy. Dango, try to get him more involved. Even Billing has been maybe the second best attacker on this team in my estimation. So, I just think that's what it's going to take. I think it's going to take Tavernier coming back and Dango getting more involved. So we shall see. But we will move on now to Brentford and Leicester drawing 1-1. Danny Ward was dropped as the Leicester keeper in this one here. I don't blame Brendan Rodgers. Ward seems to concede a ton of goals. Harvey Barnes, though, continues to just under the radar be one of the most aggressive players in the EPL, taking a ton of shots on goal. They might not be on target, but man, this guy is constantly attacking the goal, and I didn't know that about him before, but that's my favorite attribute in an EPL player, a guy that is aggressive and attacks, takes constant shots on goal because, when you test the goalie like that, a lot of times they make mistakes, especially if their names are De Gea or Jose Sa on a bad day. Matthias Jensen, very active in this game for Brentford all day and paid off about a half hour into the game. And he has now scored 4 goals in the last 5 home games for Brentford. Kudos to Jensen. This guy is a tremendous player for Brentford on a team that has Ivan Toney and Brian Mbuemo. This guy is a guy that does provide goals for this team, and he might need to continue to do so. Seeing what happens to Ivan Toney moving forward. So another guy for Brentford, Rico Henry, delivered beautiful feeds all day. One to Mbuemo was a thing of beauty, and he had a ton the rest of the game as well. Great game for Rico Henry. And then Barnes, as we've mentioned already twice on this podcast, continues putting shots on goal and capitalized in the 52nd minute of this game with an equalizer. And that was about it for this game. It ended 1-1. A couple teams, Leicester needed this win a lot more than Brentford did. Brentford is, on the top half. Leicester is kind of on the upper bottom half. But yeah, pretty good game by both teams. Harvey Barnes, this guy continues to impress me. I think he was definitely the star of this game. But good on both teams. Good, solid, entertaining, equal game. Moving on now to Southampton and Tottenham drawing 3-3. What stood out to me in this one, Pedro Porro. Only a defender in name. Plays like a striker, taking all kinds of shots on target, and scores the first goal on a quality precision strike. What a goal. And this guy is quite the weapon for Tottenham. He does not look like a defender at all. He looks like one of their best strikers, to be honest with you. And that's saying a lot for Tottenham. But then, Theo Walcott and Che Adams connected beautifully on the first goal to start the second half and tied this game up 1-1. The second goal for Tottenham, great service by Kulusevski to Kane, ending in a header. And then in the 75th minute, in what seemed like the game winner, Perisic buried a cleanup shot to make it 3-1, and what looked like the game was pretty much over at that point. But Theo Walcott, the real difference maker in this one, put one in just 2 minutes later after his teammate Maitland-Niles had a strong chance as well. Tottenham just started to break down. That defense started just to break down after the 75th minute. They thought this game was won. That might have to do with coaching, by the way. That might have to do with coaching, Antonio Conte, by the way. Then in the 90th minute, yes, almost inexplicably, Tottenham gave away a penalty, kicking a player in midair and pitting James Ward-Prowse against his former teammate, Forrester. And it was an incredible, improbable comeback for Southampton. Southampton, bottom of table. Tottenham, top 3, I believe, top 3 or 4. And Perisic very nearly stole this one in the 98th minute, 3 minutes past the original stoppage time. But this game ended 3-3, and I made a reel about Antonio Conte and his press conference. Go check that out as well. He was absolutely heated after this one, calling out management, calling out his selfish players. I'm surprised he's not fired. I'm surprised he hasn't been sacked so far. Maybe Tottenham management realizes this is what we need. We've never won the Premier League. We've never won the Champions League. Conte has, as I mentioned, has won both. He has experience there. He's one of the most well-respected, well-regarded managers in football. So we shall see. He continues to have a leash on this team. Maybe they feel like this is the kick in the pants that Tottenham need to set them up, because that defense, what happened after the 75th minute to concede those 2 goals, that was horrible. That was horrible. But that has to do with both. That has to do both with coaching and formation, but then also the will and the desire of the players. Speaking of will and desire, Jan Bednarik, they said, was sent to the hospital with broken ribs. Even though he sustained them in the first half, he continued to play until halftime, and then was pulled and then taken to hospital with broken ribs. So that sounds pretty painful, but hope he's okay. We'll move on now to Leeds beating Wolves 4-2 in a strange, wet, rainy, but sometimes sunny game. Made for some dramatic slow motion video shots here. Jack Harrison. How many times am I going to say this guy's name in association with Leeds? This guy, he's carrying this team. He is single-handedly keeping them in the Premiership. Single-handedly. Yes, I mean, I'm not even really exaggerating on that because, while some of these other peripheral players are playing sort of well, they're all underperforming relative to Jack Harrison. 6 minutes into the game, continues showing he's perhaps for the fourth game in a row just lighting it up. He's clearly the best player in the team, the best form, and he scored a goal with an incredible strike here. He's a lefty with power, and he finished on that first goal to go up 1-0. On the other side, for Wolves, Daniel Podence, as always, gives great effort and almost had a goal in this one very early on, and then he had another bicycle kick later, barely missed the goal, and another great chance after that. And I saw at least 3 tremendous chances for Daniel Podence, and if I'm the Wolves manager, I'm playing this guy a full 90 every game. He gives you the best chance to score. He is a legitimate scoring threat for this team. I don't know why they've started to give him less minutes, but Daniel Podence needs to be playing full games. The second goal for Leeds came from a huge defensive mistake, and they left Luke Ayling, a defender, wide open in the back post for an easy header goal. Just a huge mistake by Wolves. And then this game got silly. Jose Sa gave up another weak goal to Christensen right after Christensen had entered the game. But, he could have saved this one. It was quite easy. He couldn't handle it. And as mentioned in a previous podcast, Jose Sa is a true feast or famine goalie. The same way I feel about David De Gea. He has really, really great games and really, really terrible games. And he had a really, really terrible game today. Today was a famine game. And then this game was 3-0 for Leeds midway through the second half, and it looked to be out of hand for Wolves. And then Meslier comes way out of his goal for a diving header to get the ball away. But Johnny, the Wolves defender, strikes it from almost midfield and scores and makes the game 3-1. And then a few minutes later, Wolves put in another goal, tricking Meslier again. Then all of a sudden, this game is 3-2, and it's very much so a game again for Wolves. And then after a nasty tackle by Johnny on Luke Ayling, resulting in a red card, send-off, Rodrigo comes into the game and puts it out of reach essentially in the final minute of extra time to bury the fourth goal and make it 4-2. Now this last goal didn't come without controversy. Of course, this is the goal that was preceded by the Adama shirt tug. When you have all that baby oil, you can't really grab onto any part of his skin, so you gotta grab onto his shirt, and I think he's kind of inviting that with all that baby oil. And this should have been called a foul very clearly. I mean, it was even reviewed, and the referee didn't call it. In what was a weird rainy match, it just seemed like the ref just wanted to go home. Like I mentioned, it was a very clear foul. And then the ref gave red cards to several players on the Wolves bench. Just got really messy overall. Wasn't a very well officiated game. Wasn't very composed. and the ref kind of felt it toward the end, and he gave this game an extra 5 minutes because of the madness. But despite many chances that Wolves had in those final 5 minutes, trying to make up 2 goals instead of one, just not the same. They couldn't do it, and Leeds end up winning this one. Big win for them. Big loss for Wolves. Uh, if I'm Wolves, I am very disappointed in the refereeing in this game. I didn't see any of the post match comments, but I'm sure Wolves will have a lot to say about this. When you are climbing back 3-2 and you're trying to find that momentum, and then you don't get a foul call right before a goal, the final goal by Leeds, yeah, I would be upset. So Wolves, you have a case. Leeds, you score 4 goals. You take advantage of this Jose Sa, who will be Swiss cheese one day and a brick wall the next. And today he was Swiss cheese, and you guys took advantage of it. Kudos to you. Next, we have Chelsea and Everton drawing 2-2. A very strange formation by Everton in this one. This was a 4-4-1-1. And whenever you put just one striker up top with one guy right behind him, you set him up for failure. In my estimation, this is a horrible formation. I've seen it before. And unless you just plan to play defense all game, you're really setting yourself up for failure. And this reminds me of that old Pookie formation that got Norwich relegated. So I'm not a big fan of it. But anyway, moving on. I mean, Chelsea and João Felix putting shots on goal as always early in this game. Early on, he was not converting as he has been wont to do early in his Chelsea career here, but finally he did come through with the first goal of the game here in the second half, and finally got one in. On the other side, for Everton, I thought Iwobi was a force, as he always is, and I've always been a big fan of Iwobi. I think his pace, his activity, his enthusiasm are really important for Everton and are never fully utilized by this team. There's nobody to take advantage and capitalize on a lot of things that he provides for them. But he was good today, very good today. And Everton's efforting paid off with a goal by Decore. In a messy box situation from a set piece, he utilized his height to put in a goal for Everton to tie it up and had the crowd going crazy. Everton, that crowd, when you give them something to cheer about, that Everton crowd can absolutely go ballistic. And I don't blame them, because as I'm watching this game, and like I said, that formation, I had no faith in Everton. I had no faith in them at all. So when they put in that goal, those fans were probably shocked, as shocked as I was. And then the Everton defenders then combined to give up a very lazy penalty kick to Reece James. Reece James was talking a lot after that and got a yellow card. Pickford, then the Everton keeper, tried playing mind games with Havertz, walking up to him, intimidating him. But then Havertz buried the PK in slow motion and then mocked Pickford doing one of these. Mind games, but that was fun to watch. Then, out of nowhere, and when I mean out of nowhere, in the 89th minute, Chelsea inexplicably gave up perhaps the laziest goal I've ever seen to some guy I've never heard of. And I still don't know his full name. I think it was Ellie Sims. I think maybe it was his first appearance for Everton. You won't believe how easily they give up this goal in such a pivotal time. Up to one, needing these points. It was unforgivable. I mean, and this really just kind of emphasizes the Chelsea story this year. A team that is playing in the Champions League and having some success. I believe they're on to the quarterfinals at this point. but they sit in the 10th place in in the Premier League, and this is why stuff like this, not knowing how to finish games, and I I wasn't following if Cucurella was in this game or what kind of formation Graham Potter had in this one, but that guy is really struggling. I mean, Everton is a bottom of the table side, and to give up that late goal to them was just really, really, really bad. But when you look at it the other way, Everton stealing a point here, vital for them. They continue to fight. This is the second year in a row, maybe the third year, where Everton is just struggling to stay alive in the Premier League. And this is a team that is a rival of Liverpool. Has their stadium right next to Liverpool. Supposed to be on that level. Supposed to be one of the big teams, but they continue to struggle to put things together. Struggle to find a competent manager. Struggle to find cohesion in their team. I mean, this is a team that had Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, and were one of the most potent offenses for a long time. But still, just I don't know, just bad luck for this team, I suppose. But we'll see. We'll see. This relegation battle, which we'll touch on later, is maybe unprecedented. At least for the past few years or the past decade or so. This is shaping up to be quite the race. And the final game here, Arsenal beating Crystal Palace 4-1. This was an absolute bludgeoning. Zaha had a quality chance right off the bat, hit the post to start the game, but immediately after that started giving up on defense altogether. Had no defensive effort, and his lack of defensive effort resulted in the next two goals. One to Martinelli, one to Saka. And then later had another chance that was shot just wide, and Zaha just is lacking in finishing and final effort. And he's a guy that gets very emotional on the pitch out there. You see it. He's very visibly, emotional. He has one type of shot that he does that he's known for, from one side of the field to the other, and that was the one that didn't work this time on that second chance. But other than that, when you assess Zaha as a player, as a whole, just not a very polished player. As the allegedly best player on Crystal Palace, you can see why they're not one of the top teams when Zaha is their best player, because he doesn't give effort on both sides, and he's very emotional. But later in this game, Xhaka provided the third goal early in the second half, and Arsenal looks to be a team in incredible form. And they continue to dominate, and they went up 3-0, and it was looking great for them. And then Olise and Palace tried to mount a comeback in the 60th or 61st or 2nd minute on a set piece to Schlupp. What a name, Schlupp. Who schlupped the ball into the goal to make it 3-1. And a general comment on Olise here, who is a bit of a polarizing figure to me and some friends that follow the EPL. In my opinion, he's seriously one of the best players on set pieces. High quality. You see some of the finishes he's had this year. He's one of the best in the league. But there are just strange externalities with this guy who doesn't seem to ever get excited or enthused or passionate, but most relevantly just plays for a very mediocre Palace team. And maybe you don't know if it's the chicken or the egg. Is it because he's on Palace, or does Palace stink because they have Olise, who is not enthusiastic enough to push this team over the edge? And then the fourth goal, Saka put in the finishing touches on this one with an easy one-timer finish. Finished this game 4-1, put Palace out of their misery, and Arsenal looks poised to I believe they're maybe 8 points clear at this point. It's either 6 or 8 points clear of Manchester City with 10 games left, and they just look to play well as a team. And now they have a lot of reinforcements coming with Jesus and Trossard and Reece Nelson and guys like that I enjoy watching, like Fabio Vieira. Zinchenko, I think he's a great offensive, defensive player. Even guys like Gabriel that can score. Defenders like Gabriel that can score. Ramsdale, I don't think is that great of a keeper, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think Ederson is a great keeper either, and that hasn't mattered for City because it never gets to these keepers, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that rounds out the game week 28 reaction here. As you look at the table for the EPL at this point, there are 4 points separating the 12th place team and the 20th place team in the EPL. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. That is reason enough to watch every single game. I mean, you're talking about, what is that? 8 teams separated by 4 points at the bottom of the league, and 3 teams get relegated. This league is becoming a must watch every week, and there's a double game week, I believe, after the international break here. And even closer to the top or in the middle, there are 4 points separating the 11th place team and the 6th place team, which is Liverpool. So 4 points separating these clusters. So I guess that would mean 8 points separating 6th place and 20th place. Or no. Sorry, that's not the case. These are just different tiers. I think there's a big jump. I think there's an 11-point gap between the 11th place team and the 12th place team. But a lot to play for. Staying in the league, Europa, Champions League may be out of the question for some of these teams that are even in 6th, 7th, and 8th and 9th place, in my opinion. So we'll see. I think that's a battle with I think Arsenal has it locked up. I think Manchester City has it locked up. And then you look at teams like Newcastle, who are playing very well. Tottenham, if they can get their stuff together, playing well. And I'm forgetting who's 5th now. But Liverpool doesn't look that great. We'll see. I kind of like Brentford, to be honest with you. I think Fulham now is going to start tanking after what happened with Mitrovic. He might not be playing anymore. They might have to play Vinicius now. Good luck with that. Carlos Vinicius, by the way. Carlos, not the other one. So that'll do it for the Game Week 28 reaction show here. I believe there's going to be an international break coming up and then a double game week after that. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this Football v Football podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and drop a like, comment, subscribe. That would be awesome if you could subscribe and just engage with the channel. Let me know what you think. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you have Spotify, please go ahead and follow us on Spotify. That would be really, really greatly appreciated. And give a rating. And whatever podcast platform you listen on, Apple Podcast, whatever it is, Amazon, go ahead and subscribe to us on there. Give us a good rating if you feel so inclined. Would appreciate that as well. And then also Instagram, Twitter. Most of us have it. We're on there as well. That's a great way to engage with us as well. There's a lot of more exclusive stuff that I drop on Instagram and Twitter that can't be posted on YouTube or the podcast necessarily. So go ahead and follow us on there as well. Much appreciated, football fans. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day.